Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes compelling source material, does the heavy lifting, and gives you those crucial insights so you're genuinely well-informed. And today, well, we're tackling a question that I think has probably been bothering you, because it's certainly been on our minds. We live in this age of absolutely dazzling technological leaps, right? Think about AI's power, space exploration reaching further than ever. But then, why do our societies, our politics, our economic systems, why do they often feel so sluggish, so stuck in the past? It's strange we're, sending probes to Mars, but here on Earth, basic things like clean water, good education, they're still out of reach for way too many people. It feels like a real paradox.
It really is.
Our main source for this deep dive is a book that hits this tension head on. Are We Frozen in Time? Tech Progress, Social Stagnation, Rethinking Progress Beyond Technology by Paramendra Kumar Bhagat. And it's not just describing the problem, it really tries to dig into the roots and suggest some ways forward.
Yeah, and what's particularly compelling, I think, and really our mission for this deep dive, is how Bhagat unpacks this whole paradox of progress. We're going to explore not just the current gap, the tech speed versus the societal lag, but also its historical echoes. Because honestly, this isn't the first time humanity's faced something like this. And ultimately, we'll look at what the author suggests are the key insights for, well, aligning all this stuff, the tech, the socio-economic side, the moral evolution, to try and aim for a future that's not just advanced, but actually, equitable and sustainable. We're trying to sift through it all for you, connect those really impactful dots.
Okay, sounds good. Let's pull back the layers on this core challenge then. So Bhagat dives right in, doesn't he? Right into what he calls this central paradox of our time. You've got this incredible acceleration of tech innovation, AI, quantum computing on the horizon, space exploration, just amazing stuff. But it's running headlong into this, well, sometimes glacial pace of change in our socioeconomic systems, our politics, even our ethical frameworks.
Absolutely. On one hand, the advancements are truly mind-boggling. AI doing things we thought only humans could. Quantum computing promising to reshape entire industries. Breakthroughs in space.
Yeah.
It's genuinely awe-inspiring human ingenuity.
It really is. But, and this is the core point the book makes, while the tech is sprinting ahead, our broader societal structures feel, well, kind of stuck, like they're in a time warp.
Yeah.
Think about the shift from landlines to smartphones. It happened so fast. Now everyone carries a supercomputer in their pocket. Capabilities that were pure sci-fi just a few decades ago.
Right, or think about computing itself, from localized machines to these vast, interconnected cloud systems that basically run everything now.
And manufacturing. Moving from human-dependent machines to advanced automation. Medicine, too. The pace of discovery is just breathtaking, improving millions of lives.
The leaps are undeniable. But Bhagat argues this creates a really unsettling imbalance, like we're trying to walk with one foot way out in the 21st century and the other stuck firmly back in the 20th.
So why? Why does this disparity exist? Bhagat digs into this, right, in sections like the drag of outdated systems.
Exactly. He points to the sheer inertia of our established systems, our political structures, for instance. Many were designed for a completely different era, pre-digital, pre-globalization. So trying to use those old frameworks to tackle today's complex, hyper-connected problems, it creates enormous friction.
You see that friction everywhere, don't you? Bureaucracy, powerful vested interests, that constant partisan gridlock that just seems to stall any meaningful reform.
Precisely. And it's not just politics. Economic systems often remain rooted in industrial age thinking, struggling to cope with the fluidity of today's tech-driven, globalized economy.
He uses the gig economy as a key example, doesn't he? Platforms like Uber, DoorDash, Upwork.
Yeah, it's a perfect illustration. These platforms have totally transformed how many people work, offering flexibility, sure. But what Bhagat highlights is how starkly they expose the gaps in our existing labor laws and social safety nets.
Right. So many workers lack basic benefits, health insurance, paid leave.
Exactly. It's 21st century tech operating under, frankly, 20th century labor protections. It's like trying to fit square pegs into round holes. A real mismatch.
And education comes up too.
Oh, absolutely. Education is critical. Technology has this immense potential to democratize learning online courses, AI tutors, but many institutions are still stuck in outdated modes. Rote memorization, standardized tests, instead of fostering critical thinking, creativity, adaptability.
Schools that are absolutely vital now.
Totally vital. So there's this disconnect, leaving students often unprepared for the world they're actually entering. And then there's the ethical lag. This is a big one for Bhagat. Discussions around really profound dilemmas, AI bias, genetic editing, surveillance, they almost always trail behind the actual innovation.
Meaning we're reacting after the problems appear, not planning ahead.
Exactly. We end up being reactive, not proactive. The unintended consequences pop up before we've even had a chance to build robust ethical frameworks or regulations. It's a constant catch-up game.
And this is where Bhagat argues the consequences get really serious, right? This misalignment isn't just theoretical, it has real-world impacts.
Absolutely. He details how this paradox makes existing problems worse.
Like inequality.
Yes, first, exacerbated inequality. Tech promises broad benefits, but often those benefits aren't shared evenly. Some individuals, some groups, capitalize massively, accumulating wealth and opportunity. Others get left further behind.
Widening that gap between the haves and have-nots.
Precisely. In access to digital infrastructure, think reliable internet, but also quality education, advanced healthcare. If you can't get online easily or afford cutting-edge diagnostics, you're immediately disadvantaged.
Then he links it to political problems, too.
Yes, political polarization. When governments and institutions seem unable to adapt or unresponsive to people's needs in this era of rapid change, public trust erodes quickly. And Phagat argues this erosion fuels populism, makes societies more vulnerable to misinformation, and deepens those societal divisions we already see.
Creating a kind of negative spiral.
Exactly. Less responsive institutions lead to more distrust, which makes it even harder to achieve the consensus needed to fix the problems causing the distrust in the first place. It's a vicious cycle.
And the environment, how does that fit in?
That's the third major consequence, the environmental impact. Unchecked tech growth, often driven by those outdated economic metrics focused purely on growth, contributes significantly to resource depletion, pollution, climate change.
So advances that boost the economy might simultaneously be straining the planet.
Right. Industrial processes, consumer tech, they put immense pressure on ecosystems. Bhagat's clear. Without a real effort to align tech innovation with environmental stewardship, these crises will only intensify. It threatens our long-term sustainability.
It really paints a picture of needing a different approach.
Which prompts that crucial question Bhagat keeps returning to. How do we make sure progress isn't just fast, but also meaningful, inclusive, and, well, built to last?
So what are the first steps he proposes towards this synchronized progress?
Well, he argues for a fundamental shift. It's not just about smarter tools. We need smarter systems, policies, values. The first step is to reimagine governance. Political systems need to become much more agile, inclusive, transparent,
Right.
meaning embracing participation, using tech for openness, and crucially, prioritizing long-term planning over short-term political wins.
Okay, governance. What else?
Second, reform education. We need to shift the focus to critical thinking, ethical reasoning, adaptability, alongside the technical skills, nurturing well-rounded individuals. Third, foster ethical innovation. New tech needs guiding principles from the start: equity, sustainability, human well-being built in, not bolted on later. That requires deep collaboration.
Between technologists, ethicists, policymakers.
Exactly. And fourth, we absolutely need to measure success differently. GDP, stock prices, they just don't capture the full picture of societal well-being.
We need new benchmarks.
Right. Benchmarks reflecting quality of life, social equity, environmental health. These, for Bhagat, are the foundational shifts needed to get things back in sync.
Now, it's tempting to think this whole clash, fast tech, slow society, is unique to our time, isn't it?
It really is easy to fall into that trap.
But Phagat makes a strong point.
Right.
We've actually been here before. History is full of examples of technological revolutions causing massive upheaval.
Yeah, he argues that understanding these past patterns of progress and disruption is absolutely crucial for navigating what we're facing now. It's not just academic, it's practical.
So let's look at some of those historical case studies he brings up. The printing press.
Right, the printing press in the 15th century. Gutenberg's invention was, well, revolutionary is an understatement. Before that, knowledge was copied by hand, mostly held by the elite, the church. The press democratized it. Books, pamphlets became accessible. It fueled the Renaissance. The Reformation people could interpret texts for themselves. Huge shift in power.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Not at all. Phagat points out that this rapid spread of new ideas, often clashing with entrenched beliefs and authorities, also led to significant social unrest, even outright religious wars.
And the modern parallel he draws is
social media. It's uncanny, really. Like the printing press, social media can spread democratic ideals, mobilize people for good causes globally.
Right.
But it can also spread misinformation, conspiracy theories, and deepen polarization at lightning speed. We see it every day. It really highlights Pagat's point about technology often being a double-edged sword.
Okay, what's next in his historical tour? The Industrial Revolution.
Yes, the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries. Steam engines, factories, mass production. It transformed economies, led to massive urbanization, huge economic growth.
But again, with significant downsides.
Massive downsides. Pagat details the displacement of artisans, the horrific working conditions, child labor, skyrocketing income inequality. These became defining features of that era. It took decades of struggle labor movements, social reformers, new regulations to even begin addressing those issues.
And the parallel today.
Automation and AI displacing workers. It's a direct echo. Pagat argues this history underscores the absolute need for strong social safety nets, adaptive policies, things like retraining, maybe even basic income to support those affected by today's tech shifts. We need to avoid repeating that widespread social dislocation.
Then he talks about electrification.
Right, electrification, late 19th to early 20th century. It powered factories, lit up homes, enabled totally new things like telephones, radios. It was the symbol of progress.
But not for everyone equally.
Exactly. Pagat notes it often deepened the urban-rural divide as cities got power much faster than rural areas. And it wasn't just a technical rollout, it was intensely political. Huge debates about control, profit, regulation.
Which sounds a lot like
The persistent digital divide today. Unequal access to high-speed internet, advanced tech, it perpetuates inequalities. Those who have access can tap into the digital economy, online education, telehealth. Those without fall further behind. Pagat's point is clear. Progress rarely distributes itself evenly without deliberate policy effort.
And finally, the digital revolution itself.
Yes, the digital revolution, starting mid to late 20th century. Computers, the internet, mobile tech creating our hyper-connected world. Information at light speed, global commerce, social networks.
But also bringing new problems.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity threats, huge data privacy concerns, the rampant spread of misinformation, and this immense concentration of power in the hands of a few tech giants. Big questions about monopolies, accountability.
So the key lesson from the digital age.
Pagat says it's that rapid innovation demands equally agile governance. We need constant collaboration between policymakers, technologists, civil society to create frameworks that balance innovation with accountability, ensuring tech actually serves the public good.
So looking across these examples, printing press, industrial revolution, electricity, digital, Pagat, identifies recurring patterns, right? Like a cycle almost.
Yeah, he lays out a kind of pattern. First, there's always initial disruption. The new tech shakes everything up, creates winners and losers, causes uncertainty, resistance.
Then comes.
Second, often a consolidation of power. Early adopters, innovators, those controlling the new infrastructure, they tend to accumulate power and resources. Think railroad barons, or maybe today's tech billionaires.
But then people push back.
Exactly. Third is the emergence of social movements and reform. As the problems and inequities become clear, people organize, advocate, demand change, policies get enacted. It's bottom-up pressure meeting top-down structures.
And finally,
What? A period of integration and normalization. Society adapts. It finds ways to integrate the tech, develops new norms, institutions, practices to hopefully maximize benefits and minimize harms. But Pagat stresses this adaptation phase can take a long, long time.
so these historical lessons aren't just history, they're directly applicable now.
Pagat argues they're absolutely essential for dealing with AI, biotech, renewables, whatever comes next. History is our guide, he suggests.
How so? What should we do based on these lessons?
He says we need to proactively anticipate disruption. Think about the impacts, especially on vulnerable groups, before they become crises. We must promote inclusive access, ensure the benefits are shared widely, not just captured by a few. We need to foster ethical governance, develop flexible, inclusive regulations aligned with human values, and critically, empower social advocacy. Support the grassroots groups pushing for fairness and accountability.
So the past equips us to build a better future.
If we're actually willing to learn from it, that's Pagat's core message here.
Okay, so we've seen the paradox, we've looked at the history. What does Pagat say we need to do now to actively shape a better future? Where does he focus?
He lays out 3 foundational pillars really critical for achieving that synchronized progress. And the first one is education.
Makes sense. Education shapes everything.
Exactly. He argues it's not just about transferring knowledge, it's fundamentally about shaping values, skills, worldviews, equipping people to navigate this complex world and contribute meaningfully.
And technology is obviously changing education itself.
Massively. Digital tools, online platforms, AI personalization, they offer huge opportunities to democratize access. Learners anywhere can potentially acquire skills.
But there's a catch.
There's always a catch. Hagat points out how these same advances highlight the inequities. The digital divide is stark. Access to tools, reliable internet, it's still uneven, especially in low-income or rural areas. So tech can actually worsen educational disparities if we're not careful.
And it's not just access, it's also what we're teaching,
Yeah.
right? The skills gap.
Right. Automation and AI are shifting demand away from routine tasks towards creativity, critical thinking, complex problem solving, adaptability. Yet many education systems are still stuck teaching for the old economy, rote learning, standardized tests. Pagat argues this leaves students really ill-prepared.
He also stresses civic responsibility in education. Why is that so important here?
Because the big challenge is climate change, polarization, inequality require collective action, informed choices. An educated populace that can think critically, engage empathetically, evaluate information, that's essential for democracy to function, for us to tackle these issues together.
So what are the actionable steps he suggests for education?
He calls for integrating civic education much more deeply, covering civics, human rights, environmental stewardship, global issues. Actively promoting media literacy, teaching students how to spot misinformation, critically assess sources in this complex digital world, and encouraging community engagement service learning, local projects connecting theory to real-world action.
And the role of tech in education itself. It's not all bad.
Oh no, he sees huge potential. Personalized learning, global collaboration, lifelong learning platforms, the opportunities are immense, but he balances it with the risks. Worsening of the digital divide, maybe over-relying on automation and hindering critical thinking, plus serious privacy concerns about student data. It requires very careful, thoughtful implementation.
Okay, so education is pillar one. What's next? You mentioned rethinking success.
Exactly. This really gets to the heart of it. Pagat asks, if our systems are lagging, maybe it's partly because we're measuring progress all wrong, using outdated yardsticks.
Like GDP.
GDP is the prime example. For decades, it's been the main measure of national progress. But Fagat argues it's incredibly narrow. It doesn't account for inequality, environmental damage, or people's actual well-being or happiness. A country's GDP can rise while its people suffer.
And for companies, it's usually just profit.
Right. Financial performance above all else, often ignoring social or environmental impact. Short-term profit can come at the cost of long-term sustainability or public trust.
And even individually, we often chase wealth or status.
While overlooking fulfillment, relationships, actual happiness, leading to burnout and dissatisfaction, even if someone looks successful on paper. Fagat's key insight here is powerful in its simplicity. Metrics matter because they shape decisions. What we measure influences what we value.
So if we value the wrong things, we make the wrong decisions.
Precisely. To truly change course, he argues, we need to fundamentally rethink what we measure.
And he proposes alternatives.
Yes, he introduces several frameworks offering a more holistic view. Gross National Happiness, GNH, from Bhutan, focusing on well-being, culture, environment, governance. The UN's Human Development Index, HDI, life expectancy, education, income combined. The Social Progress Index, SPI, measuring basic needs, well-being foundations, opportunity. In the business world, environmental, social, and governance ESG metrics, looking at broader corporate impact and responsibility. And the Genuine Progress Indicator, GPI, which adjusts GDP for social and environmental costs, giving a more nuanced picture.
How would using these actually change things at different levels?
Well, at the national level, it means shifting focus from just GDP to holistic well-being. He points to New Zealand's well-being budget as a real-world example, explicitly prioritizing mental health, child welfare, environment, in its spending decisions.
Interesting. And for organizations.
Moving beyond just profit to values-driven leadership. Patagonia is his go-to example here. Their deep commitment to environment and fair labor, alongside being profitable. He calls it stakeholder capitalism, considering everyone, not just shareholders.
And personally.
It means consciously prioritizing well-being, relationships, purpose, contribution over just wealth or status. It's a fundamental shift in what we, collectively and individually, decide is truly valuable.
Okay, so education, redefining success. What's the third pillar?
Ethics. If we're redefining value, ethics has to be absolutely central.
Because technology isn't neutral.
Never. Fagat hammers this point home. Tech always reflects the values, biases, intentions of its creators, and that has real-world consequences.
Like AI algorithms making loan decisions.
Yeah.
Or genetic editing.
Exactly. These aren't just technical tools. They have profound ethical dimensions. And AI deciding who gets a loan, genetic tools potentially altering human health futures. Without ethical oversight, they can easily perpetuate harm, inequality, injustice.
He uses AI bias as a case study. Right.
Yes, it's a stark example. AI learns from data. If that data reflects existing societal biases, say, against certain races or genders, the AI learns those biases. He mentions facial recognition being less accurate for darker skin tones, leading to wrongful arrests or biased hiring. The tech itself isn't inherently racist, but its inputs and outcomes can be deeply biased if we're not careful.
So why does ethics seem to always lag behind the tech?
Bagat argues is partly historical. We've always struggled to anticipate consequences fully. Think of the Industrial Revolution's exploitation. It took ages to regulate. But today, the pace of innovation, AI, quantum genetics is just so much faster. Ethical and regulatory frameworks often lag years behind. We end up reacting after harm occurs.
Which leads to his point about needing proactive ethical planning.
Absolutely essential. We can't wait for problems. We have to anticipate potential harms and build safeguards in from the start.
What principles should guide this?
He outlines several. Transparency, being open about how tech works, what data it uses, equity ensuring benefits are shared, actively mitigating disparities, accountability, holding creators responsible for impacts, inclusivity involving diverse voices, especially marginalized ones, in design, and sustainability aligning tech with long-term environmental and social goals.
How does that translate into action in specific areas, like AI?
For AI, he suggests things like ethics boards, regulations requiring transparency in decisions, prioritizing fairness in training data to fight bias. For genetic editing, like CRISPR, he calls for international agreements, broad public debate involving ethicists, and focusing clearly on therapeutic uses over enhancements. For surveillance tech, strict rules on government and corporate use, requiring explicit consent, transparency, and building privacy in by design.
Who's responsible for making this happen? Policymakers.
Policymakers have a huge role setting enforceable, adaptable standards, funding ethical research. He points to the EU's GDPR on data privacy as a powerful example of setting global standards.
But not just them.
No, individuals and communities are vital too. Through advocacy, conscious consumer choices, promoting ethical literacy. This bottom-up pressure, Fagat believes, is crucial for holding institutions accountable and ensuring tech serves human values.
All right, let's shift focus now to the broader systems themselves. If tech is racing ahead and society is lagging, how do we fix the societal structures, starting with politics?
Yeah, Bagat argues that tackling today's massive challenges, climate, inequality, tech disruption, global tensions, demands political systems that are way more adaptive, collaborative, and forward-thinking than what we mostly have now.
But instead, we often see stagnation.
Exactly. He identifies key issues holding politics back. Deep partisanship and polarization causing gridlock, killing trust. A focus on short-termism, prioritizing the next election over long-term problems. Centralized power that limits participation and responsiveness. Inequities in representation, where marginalized groups lack voice. And often a real resistance to innovation within government bureaucracies themselves.
So how do we renew politics? What principles does he suggest?
He calls for inclusivity, really hearing all voices. Transparency, opening up government to build trust. Collaboration, working across sectors and borders. Adaptability systems, flexible enough to change. And a long-term vision prioritizing sustainable outcomes.
And specific strategies to get there.
He pushes for more participatory democracy. Things like citizen assemblies. He mentions Ireland's use of them for issues like same-sex marriage, where citizens deliberated and informed policy. Or deliberative polling.
Getting citizens more directly involved.
Right. Also, decentralization of power, empowering local communities more. And embracing technology within government e-governance, maybe blockchain for secure voting, using data analytics for better policy. Estonia's digital government is a key example here.
What about representation issues?
Addressing inequality in representation through things like quotas, campaign finance reform, outreach, and finally strengthening global governance, reforming the UN, creating global tech frameworks for shared challenges.
And civil society's role in all this?
Crucial, acting as watchdogs, advocates, innovators, pushing for change from the outside. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, all this talk about renewing politics really points to a deeper need, Pagat identifies the need for a new social contract.
Fundamental agreement between people and their government.
Exactly. He argues the traditional one, born from the industrial era, is fraying badly. It just can't cope with today's realities.
Why is it eroding?
Several factors: massive economic inequality, technological disruption changing work itself, automation, the gig economy undermining stable jobs and protections, global challenges like climate and pandemics that overwhelm national governments, and this widespread erosion of trust in institutions.
So the old contract is broken.
It needs to evolve, Pagat argues,
Right.
for a digital, interconnected, globally interdependent world.
What would a new social contract look like? What principles?
He grounds it in equity, access to basics for all, sustainability aligning with environmental limits, participation giving people a real voice, transparency fostering accountability, and adaptability systems that can flex and change.
And the key components.
Things like universal basic protections, healthcare, education, housing, financial security as a baseline safety net. Technological equity, bridging the digital divide, ensuring skills for the future. Environmental responsibility baked into everything, inclusive governance. And corporate accountability businesses serving broader goals than just profit.
Who needs to drive this?
Everyone. Governments need policy innovation, investment, global collaboration. He mentions Finland's basic income experiment as exploring new safety nets. Corporations need ethical leadership, fair labor, community engagement, Patagonia again. And civil society is vital for advocacy and accountability. Think of the global climate strike.
It sounds like a massive shift.
It is. Bhagat acknowledges the resistance and resource challenges, but argues it's essential for a viable future.
Which brings us to another huge challenge. The divisions in society. How do we bridge those? It feels like we're more connected technologically, but more divided socially and politically.
It's a stark paradox, isn't it? Pagat tackles this head-on. He argues these divisions, economic, social, ideological, actively block progress and make it impossible to address shared problems.
Where do these divisions come from?
He points to deep roots, often historical injustices. Economic inequality driven by globalization, tax policies, automation, the gig economy creating insecurity. Social inequities based on race, gender, identity, perpetuated by systemic barriers. The digital divide creating new chasms, and intense political polarization fueled by misinformation and echo chambers, destroying trust and dialogue.
And if we don't bridge them?
The consequences are dire, Bhagat warns: erosion of social cohesion, economic instability, a crippled response to global crises.
So what's the strategy? How do we bridge them?
It has to be multifaceted. Promoting economic equity, progressive taxes, universal basic services, living wages. Addressing social inequities, affirmative action, anti-discrimination laws, cultural competency training, closing the digital divide, infrastructure, literacy programs, affordable tech, combating polarization, civic education, community dialogue, social media regulation, and strengthening institutions to be more inclusive and accountable.
Does he mention individual actions?
Absolutely. Practicing active listening, challenging our own stereotypes, building bridges in daily life, community by community.
Are there examples of this working?
He offers some, acknowledging their complexities. South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission as an attempt at dialogue after deep division. The Harlem Children's Zone in the U.S. showing comprehensive community support, and initiatives like India's Digital India or Kenya's M-Pesa showing how tech can be used intentionally to expand access and bridge divides. It's hard work, but Bhagat believes unity is possible.
Okay, this feels like a really important shift in perspective that Pagat introduces. We've talked so much about tech's impact, but what if we changed how we think about tech itself?
Exactly. He urges us to move away from seeing technology as the ultimate goal and instead view it simply as a tool, a means to an end.
Which is how it always used to be, right?
Yeah.
A tool to solve problems, improve lives.
Precisely. But with today's rapid acceleration, Bhagat warns there's a real danger of prioritizing tech development for its own sake, losing sight of whether it's actually serving deeper human values and objectives. Is it leading to genuinely meaningful, inclusive progress?
He acknowledges the promise, though.
Oh, absolutely. Technology enhances productivity enormously, improves quality of life through medicine and convenience, connects the world, democratizes information. The potential is huge. He uses renewable energy tech, solar, wind, batteries as a prime example of innovation aimed squarely at a critical challenge, climate change, paving the way for a better future.
But then the risks of misaligned innovation.
They're equally clear. Tech can worsen inequality via the digital divide or job displacement through automation. It has significant environmental impacts, e-waste, energy consumption, and it can seriously erode privacy and trust through surveillance or misused social media algorithms.
He talks about social media's dual impact.
Yeah, it connects billions, facilitates communication, that's undeniable. But platforms like Facebook or X have also been widely criticized for amplifying division, spreading misinformation, impacting mental health. It really underscores the need for responsible innovation and regulation.
So how do we reframe tech as just a tool? What does that involve?
It means starting with clear objectives. What societal problem are we trying to solve? Then aligning R&D with those goals. It means baking ethical considerations from the very beginning, involving diverse stakeholders, and fostering deep collaboration between government, business, civil society.
He uses AI in healthcare as an example.
Right. AI diagnostics have amazing potential. But we must ensure equitable access and actively address potential biases in the algorithms to realize the true universal benefits. It's about intentionality.
And strategies for responsible innovation.
Things like strong regulatory frameworks for safety and transparency, active digital inclusion programs, and encouraging long-term thinking like circular economy initiatives designing products for reuse, repair, recycling, minimizing waste.
And individuals have a role here too.
Definitely. Through advocacy, conscious consumer choices, promoting digital literacy, we all shape how technology evolves. And what's truly fascinating here, Hagat argues, is that while we talk a lot about big systems and global policies, so much real meaningful change actually bubbles up from the grassroots. Local movements, local innovation.
These bottom-up approaches are essential.
Absolutely. He sees them as vital drivers of resilience, creativity, inclusion. They bridge that gap between lofty global goals and people's everyday realities.
What are their strengths?
They're great at addressing immediate needs because they arise from local problems. They foster community empowerment by involving people directly, giving voice to the marginalized. They encourage innovation, often finding creative solutions with limited resources. And they build social cohesion, strengthening bonds around shared action.
Can you give some examples he uses?
Sure. In environmental action, indigenous-led movements like Standing Rock or local reforestation like Kenya's Greenbelt movement empowering women. In public health, China's barefoot doctors or the COVID mutual aid networks that sprang up everywhere. In social justice, movements like Black Lives Matter or LGBTQ+ advocacy, often starting locally and growing globally.
But these movements face challenges too.
Oh, yeah. Limited resources, political pushback, fragmentation, scaling up can be hard.
So how do we support them?
By providing resources, building networks between groups, advocating for supportive policies, and celebrating their successes to inspire others. Tech plays a role too: digital advocacy, crowdfunding, data tools, virtual collaboration.
And these local efforts can drive bigger change.
Fagat argues they're fundamental. They influence policy, shift culture, and catalyze larger movements, like local climate strikes becoming a global force. They're not isolated. They're engines of systemic change.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, these local efforts often need larger frameworks to really scale and sustain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us back to global institutions.
Exactly. Fagat stresses that global institutions are more necessary than ever for tackling challenges like climate, pandemics, economic instability that cross borders. COVID really drove that home. Global trade, finance, emerging tech like AI, they all require international coordination and oversight.
And these institutions have achieved things.
Yes, despite criticisms, he acknowledges achievements. The UN in peacekeeping and setting goals like the SDGs, the WHO coordinating health responses like eradicating smallpox, the WTO on trade rules, the IMF World Bank in economic development.
But they also face serious challenges.
Absolutely. A persistent lack of representation decision-making often favors powerful nations, marginalizing others, like the UN Security Council, bureaucratic inefficiencies, an erosion of trust, and often strong resistance to reform.
So how can they be reformed?
Fagat suggests enhancing representation, streamlining operations, building more transparency and accountability, fostering innovation within the institutions themselves. He points to the Paris Agreement on climate as a positive example of more inclusive global governance.
In recognizing new players.
Yes, the growing role of regional organizations, the private sector, civil society, youth movements, marginalized groups in shaping global agendas is crucial.
So by reforming and leveraging these institutions,
we can better focus on global priorities like climate action, tech governance, public health, he mentions Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, as a success story in boosting vaccine access and achieving greater economic equity worldwide.
Okay, so after this whole journey, the paradox, the history, The need for change in education, economics, ethics, politics, grassroots power. What's the takeaway? What's the vision for the future Bhagat offers?
Well, he ends on a distinctly hopeful note, emphasizing that the future isn't set in stone. It's shaped by our choices now. We have this immense potential to reimagine things, use innovation for the common good. He envisions a future built on four key foundations: equity, seriously reducing disparities, prioritizing the marginalized; sustainability, living within our planet's means; innovation used ethically to enhance life for everyone; and collaboration, strong partnerships across all sectors to tackle shared challenges.
And how does that translate into priorities? What needs to transform?
He highlights several key areas: reimagining governance, making it participatory, long-term focused, with stronger global bodies; fostering economic justice, progressive taxes; exploring UBI, investing in job training; accelerating climate action, rapid renewables transition; restoring ecosystems, mobilizing finance; promoting technological equity, closing the digital divide; setting ethical frameworks, ensuring tech serves society; and strengthening social cohesion, tackling discrimination, building community, fighting misinformation.
And individuals are key to all of this.
Absolutely. Through advocacy, conscious choices, lifelong learning, community engagement, he points to real-world examples already happening: Copenhagen's climate goals, New Zealand's well-being budget, Rwanda's digital transformation, showing ambitious change is possible.
He paints a picture of 2050.
Yeah, a compelling vision of 2050, imagine. Renewable energy powering everything, cleaner environments, economic systems truly prioritizing well-being and equity, leaving no one behind, tech enhancing public services like health and education for all, communities being resilient, inclusive, connected hubs, and reformed global institutions working effectively together.
It's a powerful vision, but the challenges are huge.
He acknowledges that. Political resistance, cultural inertia, resource limits, they're real barriers.
And not insurmountable.
Not if we build broad coalitions, find innovative financing, and commit to education and public engagement. Bhagat stresses it's a collective journey. The future isn't predetermined. It's what we choose to build. Starting now. Hashtag, tag, outro.
And that really brings us to the end of this deep dive. We started with that stark paradox tech soaring while society stalls. We looked back at history for lessons, explored how to reform everything from education and economics to ethics and governance, recognized the power of grassroots action, all leading to this hopeful, actionable vision for a future where progress is truly synchronized, drawing heavily from Paramendra Kumar Bhagat's work.
You know, this whole discussion really prompts, I think, an important question for all of us to consider. How do we genuinely ensure that these incredible tools, these astonishing innovations we create, how do we make sure they truly serve our deepest human values, our pursuit of well-being for everyone, and not just our sheer capacity for innovation? It really gets to the core of what progress ought to mean, doesn't it?
It really does. As Bhagat reminds us, the future is like a canvas, and every single one of us holds a brush. So what strokes will you choose to add today, tomorrow, to help paint a world that genuinely reflects progress for all? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.